Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, do I have a treat for you guys today? It is my absolute pleasure to have with me on the channel one of the fantastic leads of Star Trek Discovery, Captain Saru himself. I'd like to welcome Doug Jones.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you as the very first non-human Star Trek captain of any series. What has that meant to you and trailblazing a path for the franchise?
Yeah, well, the gravity of that's not lost on me. I think being a captain at all in a Star Trek series puts you in a small club of actors who've had that privilege, very small club. So that is like, okay, that's a big deal. And then to be the first one who's a non-human in a tidal starship, that is, I think I tried to fact check that one, and I was told by some diehard Trekkers that that there have been alien captains of other ships, but not the title ship of a series, if that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. Never like the lead character or the yes, it's
Right.
guest appearances, that sort of stuff. But yeah, never
Right.
in the title show. So, how much of a Star Trek fan were you prior to being cast as Saru?
You're going to want to hear that I'm a diehard fan who was. I would call myself a casual fan, which means that I'm old enough to have seen the original series on network television in its first run. I was 6 years old when it started airing in 1966. Mm-hmm. And so Star Trek has been a part of my life all my life, big or small, depending on what's been on the air at the time. And I'm a channel flipper, which is kind of a lost art now in the age of all the streaming platforms. Just the broadcast television where you go like, oh, what's on tonight?
Yes.
That's my era. And so in doing so, you couldn't help but land on the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. One of them was on all the time. Right?
Yes.
So yeah, I would land there and stay there, be like, oh, right? So I was familiar with the ships, the captains, the crews, the uniforms, and all the alien species, and loved it. But I never really sought it out as like, it's on tonight, I gotta see this.
Yeah.
I think that's my love affair with I've played so much science fiction and so much horror and comic book genre roles in my career that I don't seek out the genre to watch on my off day, if that makes any sense.
Yes. When you went up or were interested in the role of Saru, what interested you most about taking on that role?
First of all, the fact that they came looking for me without an audition, just like, oh, Doug, we'd love to have you, was like, any actor wants to hear that, like, oh, they just love me. So
yes.
And it worked, but also knowing the legacy that comes with any Star Trek titled show, I knew this was a big deal, and I also having been asked over many years, again, I've been acting in lots of rubber bits, as playing lots of aliens, creatures, and many things over the years. So, and the question constantly coming up for decades now, have you ever done anything in the Star Trek world?
Yes.
And my answer was always like, oh, yeah, I don't understand it either, but no, I haven't. And so finally now I could say, I can.
Yes.
Yeah. And to take on a new, unique species that has never been seen before, the Kelpiens. I would be the first Kelpien on camera ever, which means I had the fun of helping create this new species and all of our idiosyncrasies and our physicality, and also, and it came without the pressure of having to fit the actors who have played that species before. I'm the first,
Yes.
so I didn't have that pressure, so that was kind of a plus. But then like this, the fear or the pressure that came with that was, oh, you've got to make this. You've got to set the tone for this species to carry on and to be a part of Trek lore and canon now. So that's like, oh, okay, the heavy just came back, right?
Do you think it was harder, or when creating the character, do you think it was harder or easier having that freedom or that limitation? Because obviously creating a new character, it's all on you to how this character is presented, as opposed to going, oh well, okay, I'm playing a Vulcan or I'm playing a Ferengi or whatever. So you kind of know what you're up for. So is there a certain amount of freedom and liberating nature to that fact that he was completely unheard of before?
I would say yes, yes. And what sets the Kelpiens apart again from all of the other species in Trek canon is the physicality is from head to toe. There's been a lot of humans in head and hands makeup, right?
Yes.
You add those boots to me, and my posture
yes.
changes, my gait changes, everything changes. I have hoof feet.
Yes.
So Kelpiens I had to take on a physicality that was not exactly quite human all the way. I'm kind of like a supermodel antelope deer.
Yeah, because I guess when you think about it, all other Star Trek aliens are really personality, based only. The way a Vulcan or a Cardassian or a Klingon, they all walk the same, But you've got the whole box and dice. You've got not only the personality, but as you say, the traits, the mannerisms, the walking style, the hoofs, the whole kit and caboodle.
And what comes with that too, since I'm the one who kind of established that, anyone who comes in our show to guest star and play a Kelpien has to talk to Dougie first.
Oh, of course. Resident, yes. You have to do the Kelpien masterclass. Do you have a favourite Star Trek character from all the various Star Trek series?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, let's go back to I think childhood, and having talked to many fans of not just this franchise, but all of show business, we tend to gravitate toward what affected us as children. A lot of the fans that I talk to do, that's what helped form them. For me, it was absolutely Spock. He was the tall, gangly fella on the bridge that didn't look quite like everybody else, didn't act quite like everybody else. That's how I felt as a child in grade school. So
okay, yeah.
So I related to him so much, and wanted to be like him.
Now, tell me about the art of acting through prosthetics, which I imagine most people would assume that sort of potentially inhibits a lot of subtlety in performance because your face is entirely covered. Tell me a little bit about acting through prosthetics.
Well, I don't think of it. I think my starting place is not to think of acting through it. I basically let it become a part of me. And it's like it's my new layer of skin that it's transformed me into this being. So I don't need to get my human expression through this. I need to make a Kelpien expression happen, whatever that is.
Yep.
So that means that if my facial muscles and all of this movement doesn't show through, then a Kelpien doesn't show through.
Right. Yes.
Basically, you have to think like an athlete as well as an actor whenever you do any kind of prosthetic makeup role, so that means that some physical stamina has to come with it. And you don't realize when you are completely encased in rubber from around here, your head and shoulders, and gloves that come up to here. Now, mind you, that's light for me because I've done full head to toe rubber from head, right?
Yeah, wow.
Full encasement. But even just having your head and hands covered, a fatigue sets in that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it. I don't know why it's there, but you just kind of go into like, I have to survive this mode. So
is it sort of a weighing? Is it sort of weighing you down, or?
It's heavy. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that, and also add to it those contact lenses that they cover the entire whites of my eye. They're huge, so that also gives you some eye fatigue. And when your eyes are kind of feeling like this, the rest of you responds to that too. Yeah. Add to that those boots, those glorious high-heeled boots with no heel that I have to balance on, and all the weight goes to the ball of my foot. And if I do any scenes that are walking scenes, I tend to do okay with balance. It's when I have to come to a full stop and stand there for a while talking. That's when I start going. I start losing my balance a bit. So my legs and the muscles in my legs are engaged every minute that I'm standing.
Wow.
So or walking in a way that goes beyond the human footwear. There's a physical exhaustion that happens much quicker. So that means that I just have to temper my day, and that means that the time off camera when the actors are hanging out in our chairs and in our set chairs where we're people are on their phones or they're talking or they're showing each other videos from YouTube.
Yes.
And I just have to go, okay, I can't engage in that because it's energy spent that I need to save for camera.
So of all the characters that you've played in science fiction and fantasy genre, which do you think has been your favorite and why?
Impossible.
Impossible? Is that like asking somebody which is their favorite child or something like that? Or
it is. It does exactly like that. Yeah, because every character I've ever played, I've had to fall in love with, even bad guys.
Yeah.
Because if I don't love them and understand their heart and soul and their needs and their wants, then I can't play them correctly. Okay. So I've really they're all my favorite while I'm playing them. Really, if that makes any sense.
Is there like a top? Is it like a top 3 or something like that? Or
well, there's a handful of ones that have had a lasting after effect with me. Yes, and that would be the ones that I'm probably best known for. Maybe and for different reasons too. Abe Sapien from the Hellboy movies. After 2 movies, 2 animated films, and a video game with him. That was quite a ride for me to go on, and I loved his intellect and his demeanor and his gentlemanly way. I loved the Faun from Pan's Labyrinth. I loved his ambiguity. You didn't know if he was good or evil, and he was also quite artistically spoken, all in Spanish. It was quite a challenge for me. When I got through that, memorizing Spanish dialogue and wearing a 5-hour makeup application every day. That was a real pat on the back. Like, Dougie, you pulled off something big there.
Absolutely.
So that has a lasting effect of among my favorites, I guess, if I had to pick them. And the Pale Man from that same movie became so iconic. That's the character that landed on so many magazine covers and YouTube parodies and cartoons, memes. And he's everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
So the public reaction helps it become a staying power in my heart. But I would say more recently are the ones that are most prevalent would be, of course, Saru from Star Trek Discovery. I've played him now more than any other character I've ever played in my 35-year career. I know Saru better than anything else I've ever played. That and The Shape of Water, the amphibian man, to be such a beautiful design and such a beautiful athletic, this best body I've ever had. So between that and the romantic storyline that I got to play with, and working with so many Oscar-nominated actors and Oscar-winning actors between Octavia Spencer and Sally Hawkins.
It was amazing film.
Michael Shannon, everybody. And so those all have, and when you get to attend the Oscars, the 2 times I've been were for Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water. So those movies really that also helps it have a lasting,
Oh wow, of course. How can it not? Yes.
So just because the full ride that movie takes you on, through the press run and the award season and all that, it all becomes a part of the experience that you'll remember in your heart forever.
In all of those characters that you've mentioned, has the experience of the prosthetic makeup playing those characters differed a great deal, or is it kind of like, or you just apply the same technique, I suppose? Like, was one particular makeup easier to perform through, or one was more difficult to perform through?
Well, each character, if it's an otherworldly character, creature, it's going to have its own design, its own design issues and challenges that another creature wouldn't have. So they're all different from each other that way. But that physical part that I was talking about before, the physical challenges that I have to, think like an athlete to get through, that becomes a constant throughout all of them. But they wear differently. One might have more weight. One might have a vision problem that the other one doesn't.
Right.
So they'll have their issues. and that also becomes a part of the how much fun did I have on set, or
Yes.
how light was my day, can
Yeah.
also be affected by how gruesome it is to get through the day, with those physical challenges.
What would you say would be the most difficult aspect of working an entire day's shoot in that sort of makeup?
Go back to the fatigue.
The fatigue aspect. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, and then trying to muster up an energetic scene if it's an action scene or if it's an emotionally charged scene, and and I've been there for 15 hours and I'm like, I just want to get this glue off of me.
Yes.
That's your biggest challenge.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, absolutely. So getting back to Saru, in terms of all the mannerisms and the Kelpien walk, was that something that you solely invented, or did you sort of work with movement coaches and so forth to kind of develop that?
I've only worked with a movement coach once in my entire career, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I can proudly say that Saru is mine as far as that goes. Another challenge that I have with having played so many rubber-clad creatures over my career is, how do I make this one different than the last one? How do I make this alien creature different than the other alien I played in a different TV series? And so when those boots were actually a blessing, because when I put them on for the first time in the costume department and started walking around, I realized that I had to push my hips a little bit forward,
All right.
in order to
Just to get your center of gravity right, yeah.
the center of my gravity over
Yeah,
the ball of
yeah.
my foot instead of my heel. And doing that, my arms fell slightly behind my hips, just slightly, instead of right next to them. So I had the freedom to do this swishy thing behind me
Oh,
that
wow.
I wouldn't have if I was walking normally.
Of
So
course.
so that was all of a sudden, and that happened within minutes of that first fitting of my first pair of boots.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I saw myself in the mirror walking around, and I was like, oh, I kind of like how that looks. And nobody ever told me not to do it, so it just kind of stuck. No one ever, without a word.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a great story! Like, just so much has trickled down from that one little aspect of just shifting your center of gravity on those boots, and all of those mannerisms and movement style as originated from that. That's fantastic. Saru went through a pretty big change in season 2 with the Vihari. How is Saru different since that event? What changes did you make to the character's performance after that had occurred?
Nothing I could plan for, because I did not see that change coming. The writers kind of surprised me with that one. Some of my castmates love to ask the writers and have sit downs with, like, where's my full arc going with my character for this whole season or whatever. And me, I'm like, surprise me.
Okay.
So they did.
Yes.
Yeah. When I got that episode, first of all, oh, they're killing me off.
God.
They're Games of Throning me,
Oh,
right?
Jesus, yes.
But then I saw that it's the threat ganglia falling out and going through like an adolescence and living a life beyond the culling phase that we were so used to and taught about as Kelpiens all of our lives for generations.
Yeah.
That we've been lied to, and this is a controlling feature that the Baul held over us. Wow. So with that, now I had based my entire character on a layer of fear. That's what his ecosystem was based in fear.
Of course.
He's a prey species. He's always looking over his shoulders for the next threat. And so now I had to 180 that entire thing, right? Like, okay, we're not afraid of anything anymore.
Yes.
So now I think that, and what came with that, what you saw with Captain Pike, I had a little standoff with him at one point, where I rolled up onto the captain with, like, when he didn't want me to go down to Kaminar, when the red angel brought us back there, or the red signals brought us to Kaminar, my home planet that I was forbidden to go back to, because they're pre-warp, so they're not
the prime directive.
So because of that, I wasn't allowed to go and spoil their evolution.
Yes.
With what I know now, right? Mm-hmm. So now that we're back, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go down there, because now that I've been liberated from this lie about Vihari, I need to go save my people. And Captain Pike was like, "No, I think we should have someone else go down there. You're too emotionally involved." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And when I got in his face, that was an act that the old Saru would not have done.
Yeah.
And also there was a scene where Tyler and Dr. Culber got into a fight in the mess hall. And I held everybody back, like, no, let them fight it out. They need to do this. And another thing that Saru probably would never have done before.
Yeah.
So I think he was sort of exploring like an adolescent, like like when you turn 18 and you can finally buy cigarettes. I think that's kind of
how far he can push the boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, but I think all the way I wanted to maintain his gentlemanliness and his sense of decorum, even though he was exploring this newfound freedom that he had from fear. So it was a little bit of balance there to work out. And so then coming into season 3 and getting captaincy, then he could take that newfound confidence and return to his gentlemanly, go by the book, let's do Starfleet like we're supposed to do Starfleet kind of way.
With that in mind, do you think that pre-Vaharai Saru would have been capable of taking the captain's chair?
That is a really good question. I hadn't thought about because he was already first officer and he was already acting captain before Vaharai. Like when in season 1, when Captain Lorca, when we found out who he really was, and then I took the leadership of the ship. So yes, he was capable of it, but he was second guessing himself every step of the way. He had to ask the computer, what other captains have come before? What are the good traits of those captains? And please mark me as to keep track of me to see if I'm measuring up or not. The new Saru would be like, I got it. I got this.
Yeah.
But old Saru was a little bit timid about where he fit in,
In episode 11 of season 3, the Su'Kal episode, you had a chance to play Saru as a human. Now, tell me, what was that like?
Another surprise from the writers, I might add.
And so again, you didn't ask, you didn't know, you read the script and, oh my God, I'm suddenly human.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So my first thought was, oh, good. That's a layer of rubber and glue that I don't have to, no contact lenses, no hoof boots. This sounds great. Then the next thought was, oh no, I've never played Saru as a human. Because half of the character development, that we were just talking about comes from that look. Then I take that look away, and now I've got to still channel that same energy with looking like this.
Yeah.
And my head now, I've got a little bit of fuzz on me now because we're just about to go back into production, but I normally shave to the skin.
Right. Okay.
And I was like, oh dear, I don't know that I want to play him as a human stark bald.
Right.
So that's why we found a wig, and that was that look. So again, the wigged look and it was darker than my own hair, and so they darkened my eyebrows a bit. So I'm very insecure looking at myself on camera anyway, even though I've played many humans over the years, but playing Saru as a human, that's where the nervous came in for me. Is the audience going to buy this? Am I going to look ridiculous, or will it? So I was a bit nervous going into this. Yeah.
How did you alter how you would normally play the character because you weren't having to emote through the heavy prosthetic makeup?
His eyebrows are built like this. They kind of come up with an upward slant to the sides. Well, mine are built the other way. So there's so much expression that happened with the eyebrows that was not Saru-like, and yet the emotion behind any facial expression I had was very much Saru in the situation where he's looking at another Kelpien. He's concerned for that Kelpien. He's concerned for the galaxy and Starfleet, and getting getting this Kelpien away from the dilithium so he doesn't blow it up again. There was a lot at stake there.
Yeah.
And also a lot of nostalgia. He hasn't seen a Kelpien since we made the jump to the future. This is my first tether back to my home world. So a myriad of emotions going on. So I basically just had to play those emotions, and however they came out of my face, that's how they came out without a layer. Yeah.
Would you say it was sort of more liberating or more of a vulnerable experience for you?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Liberating in that again, my speech wasn't hampered by thick lips, that were, and I didn't, and my eyes, that fatigue we were talking about, I didn't have to deal with that. I could go to the craft service table and get myself a snack if I wanted. I could get a cup of coffee, and I could then, if I needed to go to the restroom, I could do that.
The simple pleasures in life. Yes.
Oh, but you don't think about all that,
Yes.
right? I had, I could work my own buttons and zippers on my costume, and it was great.
Wow.
So liberating, yes. But then the vulnerable part was, it's kind of like walking out of the house in a Speedo. Where
Right.
it's street legal, but it's also kind of like everyone can see the rest of me.
Yes. That is such a great analogy. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of my interview with Doug Jones. I'll be back again in a few days' time with part 2 of this interview, where we talk about some really, really interesting stuff. Maybe even some little hints about things we might expect in season 4. And stay tuned for part 2 coming in a few days' time. I'll catch you guys then.